Cathy, before we move off of emotional intelligence, I want to ask you, when you describe emotional intelligence, what are some of the other ways that the leaders can be vulnerable and build trust and share with their teams? Mike brought up vulnerability. What are some of the other ways that, emotional intelligence helps leaders to be able to run their team?
Sure. So emotional intelligence has been organized in a little bit of a matrix, and I'll walk through the matrix. It starts with self-awareness. And it's self-awareness that you're having an emotion in the moment, because the neuroscience has shown that our behavior, our actions, come from our emotions, and our emotions come from our assumptions and our beliefs. So if we actually want to change our results, we have to check in with our assumptions and beliefs, which drive the emotion, which drive the behavior, which drive the actions, which gets the results. So this awareness of the emotion is really a fundamental prerequisite in the domain of emotional intelligence to be able to lead. Because when we're in a place of reactivity, when we're leading from a reactive space instead of a creative space or a responsive space, our emotions have us. And when we are aware of our emotions, we have our emotions, and we have the ability to put some space between that stimulus, which is the trigger of the emotion, and the response, as opposed to no space, which is trigger reaction in the same moment. If that makes sense.
100%.
Yeah, that creating that space, even if it's just enough space to take 2 deep breaths, can radically change the way you show up, and you can be much more intentional and purposeful about how you respond, which is the second part of the matrix, self-management. Once you're aware of your emotions, how do you manage yourself with those emotions? Do you allow yourself to react, or do you create the conditions for a more mindful, planned, deliberate response with a longer term end game in mind? Which is a nice segue to the third quadrant, which is the social awareness quadrant. And in the domain of social awareness, it's understanding the emotional dynamics of the other stakeholders in the situation. So it's no longer looking inward, but it's actually looking outward. And you ask questions: what do other people think about this situation? What do other people need in this dynamic? What are their feelings? What are their emotions that might be driving their perspectives? And it's releasing your attachment to your view of the world and opening your mind and your heart to other ways of seeing the situation, knowing that your way is one way, but not necessarily the universal one way. There are multiple ways you can see a circumstance. And it's really important in leadership to be able to understand, why does Michael see it from this perspective? And how does he see it? How does Mike Goldman see it? How does Kay see it? And how are all those things connected and different? Which then leads to the final quadrant, which is relationship management. And that's where rubber hits the road in leadership. That's where you're building relationships, earning people's trust, driving results by inspiring strong followership. And it's by leveraging all of those domains of emotional intelligence. Does that help fill out the...
That's perfect. Okay.